I would now like to call upon our next session speakers, Mr. Lakshmikant Deshmukh. He is the District Collector, Kolhapur, Maharashtra, and Mr. Vikas Kharge, Mission Director, NRHM. We will soon Shri Banthia, J.K. Banthia, Additional Chief Secretary, Public Health Department, Government of Maharashtra, will join us soon, and we will also look forward for Srimati Vandana Krishna, Principal Secretary, Women and Child Development, in some time. And since we are merging to two sessions, I would request the session ICT and Financial Inclusion speakers to also come up, and I would like to invite them on the dais as well. Mr. Gurudatta Rai, Dr. Assistant Director General, UID Mumbai, Dr. Balakrishnan Nair, Scientist, National Informatics Center, Pune, Government of India, and Mr. Bhagwan Patil, Joint Commissioner, Economic Intelligence Unit, Department of Sales Tax.
Morning sessions, you would have seen that our computerization efforts started with revenue improvements. Mumbai being the commercial capital of the country, it was basically in the rightness of things that our sales tax department was the first one to commercialize fully, to computerize fully. Last year, more than 45,000 crores, they came through totally e-filing and net banking. No checks, no DDs. Now they are replacing the rates with use of business intelligence tools. That's a dramatic transition happening in revenue. In revenue, other departments like IGR stamps, they are moving from desktop-based to web-based systems. They are also trying to link with UID for curbing Benami transactions. Third one is excise department. It's moving very fast into IT usage. Last year they have seen revenue increase of almost 30%, quite a bit of which can be contributed to use of IT. Old fees, we went online about 2 months back. We had to amend one of the acts, Old Fee Act. We got the amendment passed, we got the approval from the Honorable Governor. Honorable Chief Justice rolled out that project. So old fees have gone online. So on the revenue side, most of the things have gone online. On payments, our treasury system has practically gone checkless. So the aim is 0 checks in the treasury. Every payment through NEFT, ECS or RTGS. We are very fast moving into that result. More than 90% we have gone checkless on the treasury side. Next, with UID coming in a huge way in Maharashtra, we are going into UID linked payments. Now I don't need even your bank account number. We just need to know your UID number. We can actually push money into your UID number if at the back end it is linked to bank account. So we touch NPCI servers, we touch UID servers, authentication servers, and the money flows through UID. So this is not a fiction, this is actually happening. So both on receipt and payment side. So one of the sessions today is based on this plus financial inclusion. So more rollout of micro ATMs, more rollout of UID linked systems. Second thing which we saw in the morning sessions was the revenue department is going in a huge way. Settlement Commissioner and E. Mojni, Chavdi. Now GIS people sitting here, GIS, GPS, there is going to be basically a market of 200 to 400 crores. That's the kind of volume we are looking at next 1 to 2 years. So revenue department is going in a very, very better fashion. Then what you heard from Rural Development Secretary Sudhir Thackeray was, it is going to be a dramatic scale up of G2C services. Till now we have 300 odd C2 centers and roughly 3,000 odd CSCs offering G2C services. Now, in next 3 to 4 days, we are coming with quite a dramatic GR, which gives the status of CS2 to all these 28,000 EPRE centers, Sangram Kendras. So, rather than 3,000 places offering J2C services, you will immediately have 30,000 places offering J2C services. A lot of it will be powered through Maha Online also, which is joint venture between TCS and us. So those are the major things happening. So I thought I will just sum up what we heard in the morning. In this session, financial inclusion is one, and Mr. Bhatia comes in. Health department has moved into e-governance in a big way, and at the moment, they are biggest users of mobile governance. I will leave it to the team to actually explain to you how they are using mobiles in the health system. We'll have to start with finance session. So I will request Guru Datta to start.
Respected dignitaries on the dais, friends, I am Assistant Director General working in UIDAI Regional Office Mumbai here. I have been really privileged to come here and share our experiences and the roadmap towards the financial inclusion which the Government of India and Government of Maharashtra are thinking. I would like to say that UIDAI is a very new kid in the business of financial inclusion. In today's session, I would walk you through little about the background of the financial inclusion, which we are already doing in different schemes. I will try to introduce how Aadhaar can be used to improve this endeavor of financial inclusion. I will also touch upon the initiatives taken by UIDAI to make financial inclusion more cost effective and meaningful. I would also introduce the initiatives and plan of Government of Maharashtra to use Aadhaar towards its financial inclusion schemes. Using Aadhaar in financial inclusion, we have already conducted a practical pilot. Rather, the thing is now being executed in Jharkhand. So we have got some practical hands-on and practical experiences from the field that also I would like to share to all of you. And finally, I will just, for the house, I would like to throw upon some issues which we are going to face, or the issues which flabbergast our mind to make financial inclusion effective once Aadhaar-based financial inclusion would be part of the scheme. We are basically trying to move from a scenario of exclusion towards the inclusion, rather from which this financial inclusion term has been coined. Since 20 years, we can feel that we are moving towards a more open access economy, by different change in the policy, economic and other liberalization policies. And these policy innovations of opening no frill account and liberalized banking and ATM policies, branchless banking with BC, core banking in the regional rural banks, and incorporation of NPCI for payment and settlement issues has definitely put the old scheme of things in a change, and almost all citizens now are open towards the economy. But and as we have in the morning session, Secretary IT also explained that we are going checkless in many of the service delivery schemes, and there has been tremendous improvement in the penetration of ICT in the rural Maharashtra. But my dear friends, I would like to share here that there have been challenges, and these basic challenges is the lack of identity document with many of the village poor or even urban poor, and the cost of providing these banking services to poor who used to transact in very less amount, maybe in a larger number. And if we can go towards the statistics, out of more than 120 crore population, we are having 6 lakh odd villages. 60 to 70% of it are rural poor, and 40% of them are not having the bank accounts. So this is a challenge. Basically, we can summarize the background like this, that in the front end of the schemes, government wants or tries to deliver what a resident or citizen wants by its policy changes in the back end. And the examples are the policy changes towards ATM, policy changes towards operability of mobile and other things. But the real challenge is targeting the deliveries. While we know that 40% of the rural population are not having the bank accounts, with this scenario, the targeting of service deliveries to the residents is definitely hindered, while we think of including almost all the population of 6 lakh plus villages towards into the Indian economy. Just to say briefly about the Unique ID initiative, I would like to, maybe the House knows much about the UID, but to refresh it, that there is basically 3 drivers which has introduced this concept of Unique ID, and the primary driver is that many of us are not having a proof of identity document. That is the primary driver 1, and the driver 2 is the duplication and fake identities, and the third driver identities, and the third driver to bring Unique ID concept is targeting the deliveries. So basically in UIDA we are having 3 mandates. We are providing a unique number to the residents. We are collecting, for this we are collecting the basic biometric data, and we are deduplicating that data to make this number unique, and we are having an authentication infrastructure where we can offer online authentication to ensure that the Aadhaar number belongs to the person who is claiming that it belongs to him. As regards to Indian context, I think a lot of discussion might have taken place, and other thing, we will not deny that financial inclusion is the only way to increase the quality of governance for a country having more than 120 crore population and so much of diversities, villages, and majority of the population live in the villages. But the biggest example that the ICT can change the way of life and financial inclusion can bring the services to the doorstep can be exemplified by banking and railway reservation. Here in this slide, I wanted to let you know that at present what sort of identity proof or identification or authentication thing we are carrying out for getting different services. Everybody is getting services every day. So in the first type of authentication, and the user knows his own credentials, but the user is not authenticated. User's credentials which he has registered is getting authenticated. So almost in all electronic authentication we are carrying out this. We are having a different category of authentication documents: PAN card, mobile, ATM card, and ration card. So we are drawing cash from the ATM counters by putting our ATM card and entering our PIN. There is also an innovative third group of type of authentication, wherein the biometrics and different types of biometrics. Of course, we are in many access control cases also, we are using fingerprint and voice. So there can be face and iris authentication. So if we know our demographic and other information, and if some mechanism can be there where we can put our own biometric, fingerprint and iris, does it really give us an unique identity? It appears so. It gives us an unique identity, because by this we are doing electronic authentication and also digitalized biometric authentication. But here in unique identity authority, when we give this 12-digit number, along with biometrics and demographics, we have to give our Aadhaar number. So as I have explained, the 2-1 match, and only one response we used to get, that is yes or no. So that Aadhaar number and the biometrics which we have given, it belongs to the name against which that Aadhaar number has been generated. So this is basically a summary that authentication against residence data in UIDAI, CIDR, it is not the data stored in a smart card. Response is yes or no. No personal identity information is shared, and request our mobile network, landline network and broadband network, 3 networks it works. It's not restricted to only broadband network. It is 1:1 match, it is not 1:n match. So with this little share in the background, if you can see, keep UIDAI as one of the stakeholders in the financial inclusion scheme of things. The majority of the players are the state government and government departments and NPCI infrastructure, UIDAI. But here I would like to share one thing, that we are issuing 12-digit number and it is unique. We are giving online authentication services, but with different schemes, if we can create a matrix of beneficiaries and stakeholders with only authentication of the Aadhaar number, it is the government who is the immediate beneficiary at that particular instance. Until and unless a service is delivered to a resident, resident does not become a beneficiary. So the main pivot of the financial inclusion is the resident. Now, how resident can be included in the overall economic opportunities available in the country. With Aadhaar number and its authentication, the majority of the benefits goes to the government by identification of fakes and duplicates, but the real financial inclusion can come into play when a resident with mere authentication gets the benefits in his doorstep or in his bank account. So, and this can take place when we will ensure that all residents should have a bank account. So by improving the access of residents to financial system, and we all appreciate that nowadays the banks are not available even all panchayats, all Jilla Parishads. Availability of banking services is definitely a challenge. So if we want to include the majority of this class of people to the total financial system, we have to provide some novel way that they can use the banking facilities, they can take their services at their nearer to their doorstep. And then we have to develop a mechanism by which, by doing this Aadhaar authentication, which can identify the individual and his service bank account number, and the benefits can be transferred to that account. So I have marked here ABC. Basically it is a platform type of approach. A platform A, where we are focusing on opening bank accounts, and B, a payment mechanism by which our Secretary IT explained few minutes back that almost all department payments are going checkless and other thing. That means now also we are having the electronic files to generate checks, to process checks. So all those files now should have Aadhaar number and a bank account number. So a payment mechanism by these government files can be uploaded to a mechanism, to a system developed by the NPCI, so that Aadhaar enabled payment system can take place. So here I have shared one little experience which we have got from Jharkhand. It's not basically that A only completes, then B can start, then C can start. We can debundle the ABC sequence and start at any point of time, because 3 platforms are now in working condition. So opening and linking of bank accounts, as I have explained, that Aadhaar as a proof of identification to open bank accounts, RBI has issued guidelines in September 28, and to link these bank accounts with the Aadhaar number, we already have a process during the enrollment that if they can put their account number, then the concerned bank can approach the resident to have an account number open in that. By that thing it is linked. And to facilitate all this process, UIDAI has already empaneled 64 banks so that all those residents who have been issued the Aadhaar number or might not have been the issued Aadhaar number, they can go to the districts and villages and start opening the bank accounts. So the process flow also has been made simple, that the UID is KYR data is KYC compliant, has been made KYC compliant by the RBI. So there has been electronically it can be shared with public and other secured keys to bank and POSB who can open the bank account electronically, and application form also can be printed from those data. So which I have explained that once these bank accounts have been opened, then the NPCI has developed this Aadhaar payment bridge system, wherein some sponsor bank who is taking care for a particular service delivery, he can tie up with NPCI. There is an onboarding process separately kept by NPCI for this purpose. Then NPCI carries out the Aadhaar authentication with CIDR and send the file to the beneficiary bank, and beneficiary can operate his account and withdraw and deposit and the cash from his account. So it is basically like this. If we are having an electronic NREGA file, electronic scholarship file, electronic old age pension file, and these files are already mapped with the Aadhaar number, and the sponsor bank is putting the account number, it's going to NPCI engine, and the whole electronic credit file is going to the destination core banking system banks, and the accounts are populated or credited accordingly. Aadhaar enabled payment system, it is once the money has been credited to the bank account, then he is able to transact it and operate it. So that can only take place when a separate set of infrastructure can take place through micro ATM. So that thing is also has been planned, and in that micro ATM device, AEPS can take place through different services as a normal ATM does it, including balance inquiry, cash deposit, cash withdrawal, fund transfer, etc. And that infrastructure is basically done through a business correspondent model, and the business correspondent carries that micro ATM and goes to the doorsteps or in the different villages to the beneficiary and carries out the transaction. So this is how this money or the credit file is generated for transfer to the beneficiary bank system, and the account numbers are in the core banking system for their operation. So just to explain to all of you this BC model, the BC basically when a customer deposits money with a BC, an electronic transfer is made from the BC's account to the customer account. This is just similar to that of a prepaid mobile connection which we used to use and give the money and take the credit and do it. So a reversal takes place here as the process flow for a withdrawal transaction. Then at that point of time, electronic transfer is made from the customer's account to the BC's account. This quickly I will go through that how it will change this type of financial inclusion with the help of UID, change the village. It is basically, this thing has taken from the Aramgarh in UP during our pilot, that one of the Narega worker, in Thursday he is going to draw his salary. He works 6 kilometers, then 14 kilometers by bus, pays 10 rupees, and there he goes, and that is the day for the payment, and he is waiting there, and before the deadline he is collecting his the 2:30 p.m. deadline, he is collecting his payment. Then the similar return journey, and on the way he has already drawn some money from the money lender, so he is paying his 5%, 500 rupees he has drawn, and purchasing some ration from this kirana shop. So for taking his own salary, he has to spend something around 100 odd rupees in the process. But in the VC model, the business correspondent can give this money through his bank account, through the operation of his bank account in his own village. So in Maharashtra, just a quick snapshot, we have already carried out 3.69 crore enrollments. Of course, Secretary IT will try, because it is a dynamic figure, it is increasing day by day, and we have already generated 3.3 crore Aadhaar generated, and 17 banks are working as the registrars, and out of 23 municipal corporations, we have in the 9 corporations we have more than 60% of the population have been covered, and 3 corporations 50 to 60% population, and 3 districts we have covered more than 50%, and in Amravati it is 95% population have been covered. So with the commitment of Government of Maharashtra and leadership of Honorable Chief Minister and Department of DIT, and they have already identified, and we are working in close coordination in these 11 districts to link UID number to the delivery of services in these projects, and Aurangabad, Latur, Osmanabad, Satara, Solapur, Pune, Mumbai, Wardha, Ahmednagar, Amravat, Nandurbar. Besides this, as regards to regional office UIDI, we have also guided by the central government policies. As you know, in 2012-13 budget speech, Honorable Finance Minister has directed to identify 50 districts for the financial inclusion on the basis of the Aadhaar enabled payment system. So, and the central government has set a target of deployment of 1 lakh micro ATMs and 5 crore Aadhaar enabled bank accounts to be active. So in this regard, Maharashtra we have decided the 5 districts, Wardha and Mumbai plus Suburban, Amravati, Pune and Nandurbar. Quickly, in Jharkhand, these 4 banks were involved in our pilot. Rather, it is not pilot now. The payment is also going on, is being made through Aadhaar number. Bank of India, UBI, ICICI Bank, and Axis Bank. And the process, we have generated this downloaded forms, mapped the NREGA cards to the Aadhaar number and account numbers, where bank account numbers were opened, and BCs were deployed along with micro ATMs, and we have entrusted the videos and panchayats there, and muster rolls and electronic payment advices were generated, and the bank credits the beneficiary's account on e-advice through APBS. Here Minister Sri Jairam Ramesh has visited that village. There are some learning we have got, and similar type of things also we are trying that here in Maharashtra we can take care. That state government ownership is critical, capacity building at the level of district, block and panchayat level is a must, and the critical mass of mapped Aadhaar to scheme identifier that are required. If 20,000 people are there for a public service delivery, so a critical mass minimum 60-70% of the population should be covered. And on behalf of the banks, the government has to identify or should work in coordination, so the dedicated project manager should be there. And BC sensitization is an important because it is a very new type of machine, and the poor rural people in the village, they are scared to put their finger on other things. And another thing which we have felt there, that feeling of empowerment observed among women beneficiaries who used to collect widow pension and everything on just putting their fingerprint and punching the Aadhaar number. Some issues, it is of course open and we can discuss and this thing. And basically it is the mapping which is the biggest challenge that, but I hope in Maharashtra we will be very, very successful, because almost ICT penetration is too much, and once we are planning or going towards the checkless these payments, and there this seeding of data would be not a big challenge, and opening up accounts for the mapped data, and in many places enrollments might not have reached that critical mass. So in our phase 2 of enrollment we are going to take care for that, and our backend CIDR should work 24 hours 7 days. And connectivity is definitely an issue. Connectivity, but just the previous this session I used to go through the presentation, and there I could feel that connectivity would not be a big problem here. And the most important thing is that the scaling part, some discussion between the banking authorities and government is required to do it. Thank you.
See, UID linked bank accounts and UID linked micro ATMs can be game changer in FI. So we'll continue on this theme after a little while. I am told the health team has to go early. Tomorrow UN General Secretary is in town. He is visiting 2 hospitals, having meetings with them. So we are just switching tracks in between. We welcome Mr. Bhatia amongst us. He's ACS Health and taking great initiatives in e-governance and especially mobile governance. We also welcome Vandana. She is Principal Secretary ICDS. So please come on stage, Vandana. And I welcome Vikas Kharge also. He's Director NRHM, doing great in e-office. And on health panel we have Collector Kolhapur, Lakshmikant. So he has done great work in sonography. And our request to all the panelists would be to be really focused on the point they want to make. We are doing on some part, we are doing with PowerPoints. They are taking a lot of time and we are running really short of time. So no PowerPoints from now onwards. Focus on the points, and I request Mr. Bhatia to steer this health and panel discussions. And sir, I would request that we keep about half an hour for the panelists to speak and give 10 to 15 minutes to the participants to ask questions.
I think we must adhere to time. I thought the previous session was far too long and far too unnecessary, actually. But let us do that. Anybody wants to do a PowerPoint presentation? I think you should go ahead, because I believe some of you have already loaded the stage session. But we'll stick to time. Since Rajesh has said not more than half an hour, each one of you will get around 10 minutes. Okay? If you want me to give you a signal in 8 minutes, I'll give you a signal. If you want me to give you a signal in Kolhapur for a little over 2.5 years, maybe very close to 3 years. He was pioneer in introducing this silent observer, SIOB as we call it. SI stands for silent, OB for observer, which has switched over to an active tracker, something like that actually. So I lost track because we used to follow. At least conceptually it was very clear. Okay? Technically, there are several challenges, some of it you'll come to know. So, the time begins now.
Yes, sir. Honorable Bhatia, sir. Ladies and gentlemen. In health category, I am presenting Save the Baby Girl, an ICT solution to stop the female feticide. I will not take much time. Why I wanted to do this project? The declining sex ratio is the national concern. If you can see the figures, there is a sharp decline over last 2 decades. From 1999 to 2015, India level, in category 0 to 6 years, Maharashtra is still sharper decline from 913 to 883. That is the concern we are facing. It is a future problem, but we must address it presently. In order to prohibit the sex selection and sex-related abortions, there is Central Act, PCP Act. It prohibits the sex selection and disclosure, but still society wants, they have a very strong son preference, and doctors are doing this unethical practice for the lure of the money. So it is a chapter between these two persons and society at loss. The present system, the act is very powerful, but its implementation has some problems because we never come with the proper solution, because there are two problems related to this, the under-reporting and hospital. I will come to that points later on, but it has some limitations. So I want that we can, with the help of the IT, we can find some solution. The solution is Save the Baby Girl. That is my domain name. It is an ICT-led solution. I will come to directly. It has 3 stages of implementation. In first stage, there is online registration of the sonography centers. Sonography centers are popularly known as the USG centers, and they are the basically culprit, because they, with the help of sonography centers, doctor can identify the sex of the fetus after 12 weeks, and they can disclose. And if they don't want the family don't want the daughters, they can abort it. So online YUP form is the form which doctor has to fill after each test of sonography of pregnant woman. Second is the site of the just now we have improved a lot. Now it is called active tracker. And third is ANC tracking. So this is the homepage of my website. In first stage, in my district Kolhapur, where we have witnessed a sharp decline in the sex ratio in 2001, when the all India level figure is 927, my district was showing a figure of 839, very sharp decline in the sex ratio. So I started this exercise. In first step, I made all online service center online. I have more than 281 centers in my districts. With art of persuasion, workshop, brainstorming and motivation. I push all doctors and they fall in line, and I started the website savethebabygirl.com, and I have given username and password to each center, and I ask them to fill the form. That the test report of the sonography of pregnant woman, each pregnant on daily basis on this web portal. That is first thing. Also, those private centers having delivery homes, they are asked to submit the reports of each delivery, so that we can track whether how many boys are born, how many girls are born. So on the basis of that, the sex ratio at the birth, we can identify if there is some decline, and there are some culprits where there are more boys are born, less girls are being born, and there is more abortions. So we can pinpoint the suspected centers of the doctors. So these are the things, these are the figures. I will not go in detail because I have short of time. My ACS and I have to follow the orders. After this first phase of thing, many doctors went to High Court, and High Court gave a judgment in our favor and told that my project is legally permissible, and they have identified the 4 distinct advantages of the online form. So I'm not going to details, but they told that the submission of all survey tests and its results. Now, what is your form after test of each pregnant woman? They have to give the details of her family history, how many girls they are with her, and what are the abnormalities, and what is the outcome of the sonography test, and what is the advice. Many times, because of abnormality in the fetus, they advise for abortions, whether it is true or not, and how much they are taking care to fill the form properly. And they have to submit within 24 hours, that is my mandate. The normal practice is that they have to submit the form after 1 month, and to collection all the form to do analysis. In one district, there are 20,000, 30,000 sonography tests are being conducted each month. In my district, it's around 15 or 20,000. To collect those forms and analysis and come to some conclusion, it requires a lot of time. And by sheer lack of time, it's not possible to pinpoint the culprit doctors. And the practice of female feticide goes on and goes on. So, electronic form filling, those things we can analyze it properly. In fact, the second advantage I want to bring out, in fact, having gone through the content of form, we find that it could be possible for the person assisting the radiologist to fill the form immediately after sonography. Because they are saying that how should I fill the form within 24 hours? Because I have given time of 1 month. So that is the observation of High Court. Third advantage is that form by searching relevant data, we can make analysis of those forms and come to some conclusions. The last thing is very important. The according that section 17(4) requires the appropriate authority, that is collector, minister, commissioner, or doctors, to take immediate action in case of complaints of breach of provision of the Act and the rules. But it would be not possible to take immediate action if the authority has to wait for submission of hard copy of the form till the 5th of next month. In every field, it is permitted. So they make it that it is perfectly legal to have this. So this first stage I have completed in first 6 months. I am getting some results. I am getting huge data of forms. I am making analysis by reading doctors, centers, and seeing those survey centers for some suggestion. But it has some limitations. So I come up with another solution. What are the limitations? There are 2 limitations. One is under-reporting. For example, in survey center, particular center, don't fill the form at all online. What I can do? How can I come to know? Because I have so many numbers of the sonography centers. And this false reporting. If a doctor or center fill the form regularly, but he misses some entries and he falsely mentions some entries. In spite of having a good healthy baby or the fetus, they are mentioning that they are some aborting the fetus. So advising abortion to the pregnant lady. So these are the 2 things, and they are the basic root cause of the female feticide. So how I can overcome those things? For that purpose, yes sir. I come with the side observer. It is an embedded device of recording videos of each and every sort of test at registered centers. Captures all screen images and stores in form of video in the local hard device as SIOB. A daily folder automatically created and videos are stored systematically and in encrypted forms. That is the side feature of the SIOB. These are the graphic presentation SIOB. These are sealing points. And Honorable High Court also hold that this is a proper welcome step. In our view, the instruction sent by the collector and district magistrate Kolhapur requiring the sonorologist persons in charge of ultrasound machines to install SIOB are within the letter and spirit of the PC-20 Act. So our experiment, what we have done in the electronic format, is upheld by the High Court of Bombay. We are of the considered opinion that there is no violation of the doctor's duty of confidentiality, because many doctors are raising question about confidentiality and patients' right to privacy. The contours of the rights to privacy must be confirmed by the compelling public interest flowing through the internal provision of the Act. So this is the observation, and they also hold that it is proper. But there are some problems with the SIOB. So we improved. We will take to the next stage. It is called Active Tracker. It is the latest version of the SIOB. And we have removed all those problems, and even the state government appointed one study group, they come with the solution that the Active Tracker is much more important, much more improved version of the SIOB. And it take care of the remove all the drawbacks. All the problems in the SIOB were solved. the new device is never active category is active, not silent. There is no one on and off button which can doctor never on the put on button and start the sonography machine, sir. So that we have taken. We have also the major thing is that a GPR system added to device that sends signals to SPBG, our server, about on time and off time, number of files created per day, and hard disk size, etc. A GPR sent SMS alert to district authorities if the device or the sonography machine is not switched on for 24 hours, if any cable is tempered, if any third party try to access the data. So, because of GPRS system, we are getting daily alerts, so we can pinpoint the culprit doctor, culprit center, and take proper action. Here is a picture of the active trackers. I will not go into details. We have also taken the concern of security issues and privacy as a direction of the Honorable High Court. So, we have implemented in our district. We are generating online center registration, center secured username and password. Then we are online submission of policies. Since last 2.5 years, we have got more than 4 lakh YUP forms on our website. Online submission of MTP, online submission of delivery, automatic monthly reports are being generated for analysis, online complaints and requests for edit. So these are the things, sir.
Time is over.
Yes, sir.
60 seconds grace
Yeah.
period begins.
This slide shows that in last 2.5 years, we have collected data for that 4.5 lakh or 1.15 lakhs YUP forms, and it is distributed in both municipal and rural area. So this solve the under-reporting. Our reporting of YUP forms improved by 46% over the last 2 years, and there is a continuous picture. It is now become stabilized. We have filed 2 cases, sir, on basis of this data generated. In one case, Rama Clinic, we have detected under-reporting. They have done 122 sonographies, but they have only reported 7 online and offline. They also indulged in false reporting. In one case, they told that they have done MTP because of contraceptive failure. When we see the video, there was no contraceptive failure because they had implanted the copper T. So it was a false reporting. We detected it, and the intention is to see the sex and disclose the sex to the pregnant woman and her family. It was aborted later on the second day. So we filed the case in the court of law.
Grace period is also over, sorry. I said the grace period is over also.
Yeah.
You have to finish off.
Yes, sir. Just last slide, sir. Another we also filed the general hospital for the wrong reporting, sir. This was recognized by our state government. NASCOM social award I got at the hand of Honorable CM. I got E-India Award, sir, Manthan Awards, and recently the Times of India Social Award, sir. You have also praised a lot, sir. These are some photographs and some clippings. With this, I conclude. Sorry, I will hurry, so I have this.
He motivated everybody and everybody fall in line. Well, you know how to interpret that actually. But I'll leave it to you in detail. Okay. And many good things which he has done, and I don't know whether magnum opus are here. Okay, I think their work needs to be also appreciated actually. I mean, there may be issues, etc. But a lot of good work has been done, etc. How to make it more effective, etc. But this is not time. I think you got overawed by the High Court order which you were mentioning, etc. In these sessions, one could be more IT oriented rather than legal oriented. That could help. Can we have one more please now? Yeah. One more please. Okay. Now, currently, she is the Principal Secretary of Women and Child. She is trying her best, among other things, how to manage the malnutrition actually, and several ICT initiatives have been taken. One more yours.
Thank you, sir. I'll directly get into this, avoid all formalities. I'm going to talk about how do we try to monitor the nutritional status of lakhs of children in our state. We have about 60 lakh children who come to Anganwadis. They are the people who are registered there, about 60 lakhs. So how do you track their weight, nutritional status, immunization, etc. So it's a huge task, and we are trying to use ICT. I'll try to skip a lot of the background things which have been put. About 47% of children are malnourished in India, and about 50%. This was some time ago. This is if you count the moderately malnourished also. And we have been trying to use the ICDS data, which is the data compiled by Anganwadi workers, in great detail. They have about 19 registers. We are trying now to sort of computerize it and get the system to analyze it automatically and generate a lot of reports which otherwise never get studied. There's a lot of background about how the Anganwadi workers, they capture about 306 types of data and columns about it. Could be about how much food is given, what is their weight, are they getting preschool education, etc., etc. And how do we track all that? And generally there are different tiers through which this data flows manually. So the Anganwadi worker will not only maintain 19 registers, but then she'll send some monthly progress reports to the supervisor, then to the project, then district level, state level and national level. There's a flow of data and there's never a reverse flow, never any analysis of this data. The Anganwadi worker is busy filling in forms and everything else. And the supervisor at her level, who has 25 Anganwadis under her, is busy compiling and adding figures from each Anganwadi, and then all these figures are manually done. Whether they'll add up or not, there'll be manual errors. Then at the project level, someone will sit and make data entry, and this takes days, or because so many Anganwadis data has to be filled in. And in the process, a lot of the detailed data of the Anganwadi level is lost because it's all compiled and added up. Limitations, wastage of time, and huge paperwork, man hours, about 60 crores every year is the assessed cost of just compiling this information. And then, as I said, the details are lost. When you add up data of 25 Anganwadis, you know, okay, broadly, so many malnourished children are there in total 25 Anganwadis. But then, which is the pocket which had the maximum malnutrition? That kind of detail is lost. And then also that errors and no comparison with previous month's figures is possible, information lost, etc. And also I've told you the breakup is lost. Like we at the Anganwadi level, you will have data of 3 to 4 years, 4 to 5 years, 5 to 6 years, and you can pinpoint which are the children who need more care and attention. But this data is lost because it's all 3 to 6 years at the higher level. So this kind of compiling leads to a lot of data not being captured. Now we come into this nutritional surveillance system, and what we are trying to do, we have Anganwadi-wise data which is entered, and then it is validated, automatic compilation for the upper tiers, and most important, generation of predefined indicators. We can assess what the data is like, you can analyze it, automatically some charts will be presented before you, and you can generate like practically hundreds of queries and they will be answered by this data. And also there is some mapping, so it is easier to understand the data. Plus now, instead of a one-way flow of data, you can say that in the blue, it shows that there's a backward flow also, that the data is going back to the Anganwadi level and they can assess, they can understand what this data is all about. Reduces paperwork, drudgery, etc. A lot of reports which go to Government of India get generated. Local language, it's all in Marathi. They can data entry can be done even at the village level. If not village level, then at Anganwadi supervisor level or at project level. It's possible to track. I'll try to skip all this. Local language, so here it is. Now, this is what you can sort of get into this page of the website, and somewhere I think I had mentioned the website also. Now, this is something like what the map which is sort of produced by the software. This is one typical area project, which is like a block, and it shows the spatial distribution of Anganwadis. Then you can have a lot of other details like the squares here. They show that where are the severely underweight children. More than 2% children are underweight. If you want, you can feed in more than 5% children are underweight, more than 10%, more than 1%. And you can also see all four simultaneously. For example, you want to see how much, in what Anganwadis more than 2% are underweight, more than 5%, more than 10%, more than 20%. Four things you can see simultaneously also. you can have different combinations, permutations, 6 months, up to 6 months, up to 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever you want. And various kinds of such permutations. For example, this one shows that after 6 months, there's a decline in normal children. After 6 months, the data analysis shows that children who used to be normal in weight, they start becoming malnourished. This goes on up to typically 2 years of age. So this is the WWMHNSSINDIN. This is the website through which you can, our people can access and navigate through the data. You have to feed in your password, etc. So right now it's not accessible to the public, but it will be in time. Here, the left side shows how you can make different queries, ask different queries and different permutation combinations, and the mapping will show you at a glance what you need to know. Nutritional status, you can find out 310 other queries are there. You have to select the group, nutritional status, etc. And all this has been done in a very user-friendly way. For example, this is showing which are the Anganwadis where the severely malnourished children are more than 2. So at a glance in a project, they can make out that 21 Anganwadis have more than 2 children. Here it is showing where are the moderately underweight children where they are more than 10% are moderately underweight. You can make it more than 20%, more than 5%, whatever you want. So the squares are showing these are the Anganwadis where the moderately underweight children are more than 10%. And so many, the left side shows that totally so many Anganwadis have it. Here, for example, where are the villages which have a minority of, say, Muslim population more than 200? Or you can ask more than 300, more than 500. So here these squares are showing that these are the Muslim pockets. Then you can check whether they have Anganwadis. Okay. Similarly, you can see which Anganwadis have, say, I've given just some examples. Less than 10 or 15 children, only very few children are attending Anganwadis. The rest are not attending, or they are not receiving services. There is underrepresentation. So the maps will show you which are these Anganwadis, and you can decide what to do about it. You can ask, okay, which are the villages where new Anganwadis have been proposed? So that it can mark that. Then you can check, okay, are these being proposed even though in the existing Anganwadis itself, very few children are attending. So you can check whether you really need to open Anganwadis. Similarly, you can map private Balwadis, are they there? And you can see whether there's a need to open ICDS Anganwadis. And also, some sort of geographical, geo-referencing they call it, has been done in Nagpur and which is planned to be done in other parts of the state. For example, the yellow parts show which are the population pockets, and then we can track whether these have Anganwadis. So where are the Anganwadis? Are they located in all the population pockets or habitations as we call it? And if we go into further detail, then for example here we can see one pocket does have a green point, it does have an Anganwadi, another one doesn't, but the smaller one is too small, perhaps the population is too small to deserve or to need an Anganwadi. Now this is actually a photograph, satellite imagery, where it is showing the location of the Anganwadi, and we can sort of make out that yes, this habitation is being covered, this habitation is not covered through an Anganwadi. So this is the kind of thing which we are now planning all over the state. So that is my presentation. I've tried to make it to the point. This system is going to basically help us to analyze the data and to make policy decisions or make some specific decisions about what needs to be done about malnourished children, etc., etc. It's a tool in the hands of policymakers, and hopefully this will help people, even those at the lower levels, to basically make decisions. Thank you.
30 seconds for the next speaker. Actually, this is a wonderful project which has been done with Meadows, Riddhi and UNICEF. It was like from Vandana show basically. I don't know whether anybody from Riddhi is here, but that doesn't matter actually. Okay, I mean, you must have seen the census mapping of 2001. This is much more dynamic in the sense, and it is much more minuscule. I mean, it goes below the village level. It goes to individual houses actually, etc. The public health department, we got a similar project with the same company, Major Reddy here, etc., and you require dynamic changes to be captured. No longer monthly progress report. It's a real-time report. You're given a service. I don't want to wait till the end of the month, etc. I mean, those days in government will soon be out. I mean, it's difficult to say this, but believe us for this actually. So we don't want this end of the month report now. It has to be end of the day report now. That is what it is. The third director for NRHM, he's got a degree in engineering, among other things. He has also had very prestigious posts, being Chandrapur collector, being collector of Aurangabad, as well director of GSGA with his engineering background, etc. And right now he is with us in the public health department, holding the post of the position of mission director in NRHM. He is very technology savvy, etc. And he's going to speak on the e-files or the core governance projects, actually, etc. Good luck to you, Vikas.
Thank you, sir. Under the leadership of Bhantia sir in public health department, we have started many e-governance projects. To list, there are 16 projects that we are running. ASHA, drug inventory, availability of doctors, medical officer, masters, then transfer request, grievance redressal, construction tracker, NRI registrations, medical officer registration certificate program. So these are the 9 programs which are developed with the help of Merito with us. Then e-file project and MCTS, mother and child tracking system. These are the 2 softwares we are running with the help of NIC. NIC has developed that. Then pull SMS, as ACS sir was telling, that now the department is only believing on real-time data. So we are implementing this pull SMS and PCPNDT F-Form online software. These 2 software, pull SMS and PCPNDT, Maha Online is working with us. Then health advisory call center, which I am going to make presentation. That is, we are working with one company, HMRI of Hyderabad. Yeah. And then GIS with the help of Riddhi and biometrics. So these are the biometric attendance at most of the health facilities. So these are the 16 projects that health department is currently running. Because of time, I will be presenting few initiatives which we are implementing. First is about the telemedicine. As everybody knows, in rural areas, in tribal areas, there is a paucity of specialist doctors. But there is a rather more need of specialists in these areas. To overcome that difficulty, with the help of telemedicine, we are handling the situation in the remote area and tribal area. Up till now, we have 57 patient nodes, where patients will be there along with the local doctors. They will be communicating with the specialist sitting at 6 different places in the state. These 6 places are basically the government medical colleges and 1 private hospital, Nanavati Hospital. So from the specialist node, the specialist will be giving guidance to the patient who is sitting at the remote area with the help of this telemedicine project. These are some of the pictures. You can see the patient. ECG pictures are being transmitted. Initially, we started this project in 2007 with the help of ISRO. Afterward, some problems, technical problems of ISRO, then we shifted to our own BSNL broadband, MTNL broadband system. We are using the prognosis software for this purpose. We are using this telemedicine not only for referring the medical record or history of a patient. That is one part. The doctors at the specialist node, they are on the basis of record analyzing them, they are guiding the patient. That is the one use. Another use is of CME, continuous medical education. Our specialist at the specialist node, they are delivering some lectures or they are conversing with the doctors at the patient node, and this is how we are using this telemedicine for CME also. As I told, we are using GIS system for various purposes. You can see the use of GIS here also. This is some of the data. Till now, around 25,000 patients have been referred from the patient node, and they are being advised. They are advised by the specialist. these are some of the pictures of CME, continuous medical education. Here I would like to say here, not only these 6 centers, but people from other countries, from Washington also, they are having CME without doctors. See, these are some of the pictures. JJ Medical College and Aurangabad people, they are having this telemedicine. Not only the doctors, but the cutting edge level people, ASHA worker, A&M, they are also being trained with the help of this telemedicine. This is one intervention. Another intervention, IIT intervention in health department, is Health Advisory Call Center. I would like to mention here our Honorable ACS sir. It is his basically the idea to have this Health Advisory Call Center. And I would like to say proudly, Maharashtra is the only state where this Health Advisory Call Center is functioning. This is basically the health advice to our cutting edge level people who are working at grassroots level. A&M, ASHAs, medical officer of PSCs, medical officer of school health, medical officer of mobile medical team. For them, if they want any medical assistance or advice, there has to be 24/7 call center, advice center. On the record, yes, they can contact their immediate superior medical officer, but in practice, it is very difficult to have this advice. So to overcome this difficulty, we have developed this Health Advisory Call Center. This is situated, the call center is 10-seated call center, situated in Pune. For that purpose, through open tendering, the HMRI of Hyderabad got selected. And you can see these, we have developed the algorithm, a software, where considering the various securities from the field level, the algorithm is developed with the help of all these medical college expert people. And just from January we have started this Health Advisory Call Center. So in these 2 months you can see around 30,000 calls have been received by this center. And both specialist and non-specialist. Specialist means actually the specialists are advising the medical officers, and non-specialists are actually the trained paramedics who are advising the ASHAs and ANMs. You can see the breakup also. 30,000 calls have been attended, and around 17,000 ASHAs have been guided or given the guidance. ANMs are also giving guidance. This is helping very much. We are taking the reaction of all these grassroots people. This intervention is really helpful to the people who are directly giving services at the village level or at the remote level. We are monitoring from which district the ASHAs are calling, ANMs are calling, and accordingly we are monitoring all these things. Shift wise also we have analysis. So during first 2 shifts we are getting more calls. In night shifts still we are getting a few calls. So this is the second intervention that we are in. Then now third is about the ASHA. ASHA is basically a women worker, accredited social health activist working in every village for 1,000 population. She is basically the link between the health institutions and the citizens. We have 60,000 ASHAs in our state, and the Gram Panchayat or Gram Sabha is appointing these ASHAs. After their appointment, we need to train them. There are 6 or 7 rigorous training modules. Then afterward, she has to perform 23 various activities, and on the basis of her performance, the payment is made. She is not a regular employee, or there is no regular fixed pay to this ASHA. So we have to monitor all these 4 activities of this 60,000 ASHAs. It is very difficult to monitor manually. That's why this ASHA software is developed. Here, yes, sir. So this is the only state which is having this software. Lilito is working with us on this, and now the result is very good. We are now able to monitor the working and performance of ASHAs, their training, their payment, etc., etc. This is really helping us. These are some of the reports. Now the last is about the e-file system. Again, I would like to say, Health Department and the NRHM is the only in the state which is implementing this e-file system. This is developed by NIC, and now we have 250 users, not only in Mumbai, but Mumbai and Pune offices. They are using this there are 250 users having digital signatures, no physical file since February in NRHM office. And as a chairman of NRHM, even the files we are sending to ACS, and he is also clearing all this e-file. Now our future plan is to expand this e-file system in entire public health department at Mantralaya, public health department, then directorate and all deputy director, civil surgeon, DHO will also be covered in coming 1 year. So NRHM, the NIC has given manpower support both at Pune and Mumbai. We are giving training, continuous training to our system. Government has issued GR also. Sustainability is also equally important. So government has issued GR that e-file system will be there in health department. Government resolution, yeah. And really from anywhere, in the morning also Honorable Minister mentioned that we can clear file from anywhere. I was in election duty in Uttar Pradesh, or even officers when they are touring. One of our colleague officer had gone to Delhi yesterday. He cleared some of the files from Delhi, Nanded, wherever people go, they clear files. And really the speed has increased. Delhi, if I give my example, Delhi I used to get 25 to 30 files. Now Delhi I'm getting 70 to 80 files. So this speed has increased from Pune, from Mumbai, from anywhere files are coming directly to me. And transparency is there, and it is a environmentally also saving the papers. All these things are there. I have told you future plans. In 1 year we want to cover entire. So this was the earlier situation. Now situation has changed. Just a half minute. So we have linked this e-file. We have linked this e-file to the e-banking. So earlier what used to happen after this e-file clearance, so there is no physical file. But you see, to transfer from NRHM office, we transfer funds to the district for various districts. Then we make payment of our own staff and we make payment of vendors. So for that purpose, we used to receive then physical file, and we were supposed to sign the physical check. We have stopped that also with the help of bank, ICICI Bank. E-banking system has also been developed. We are transferring funds also through e-banking. So we are not signing anything now. So these are a few of the initiatives, and we are here again to go further in implementing various other programs also. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Vikas was saying that I am responsible. I am not responsible. Actually, I am only providing a platform. These are the real heroes, actually the champions. So I would request your indulgence for allowing me to call who are the champions to help us in the public health department. Obviously, we must begin with my dear colleague, Mr. Rajesh Agarwal. I think without his support, I take so much of his time, my department takes so much of his time, but he's always smiling and always gives us time. That the moment you call him and just gives it. And I see if they are here, and I see they have tremendous support to us actually. And yes, a big hand to NIC, please. And I'm pretty sure that without their support, the only threat I give them is I'm going to call DG Dr. Gairora, and I don't ever to call. The team here is excellent actually. They do everything for us. Then we have got champions here. The directorate team is here. I would request, you, Vikas mentioned about the e-file. The lady who is behind the e-file is here. Actually, Dr. Tarde is here. Could you please stand up? Dr. Bhaviskar is going to do the full SMS trick for us. For the TSC, he is there here. Kamlakar is my undersecretary. He looks after all the things in Bangladesh. So I would like to thank them actually. Without them, obviously, it couldn't. This is Maha Online here. Maha Online has been giving support. So Maha Online, if they are here, I would like to acknowledge their support and need this. Without them, we would not have been able to do it. Is Nelito here? Okay, so Nelito requires a big clapping from us. They've been, most of the ASHA workers, all of these things you were seeing actually, they are the ones who developed it, and it's thanks to Rajesh who pushed us to Nelito and Mastec. Mastec really got out of the system from us, but Nelito is surviving with us for the moment, so let us see. Okay, I think they have done tremendous work, and we would like to publicly acknowledge here. And then I would like to request my excellent team here, the KPMG team here. Okay. One of them, I have the two ladies, Monica, Nitin, Nilesh is the person driving them actually. Tremendous team they've been with us for more than 2 years now. We were the first department to engage a consultant as such, and I think it's doing it. So it's a team effort at the end of the day. Rajesh has asked me to allow you to ask some questions, so you've got 6, 7, 8 minutes, something like this. Any queries you have got? To the panelists, not to me, please. Okay? I think I covered everybody who has contributed. If I left out anybody by any chance, well, I do regret, but we do acknowledge your support in the years. I got very old friends here. I mean, Dr. Ravi Gupta is here. I know him for more than 10, 11 years actually, when we used to be in Delhi. He is still in Delhi. I moved on to Mumbai, that's all. Via very circuitous route was here. Spanko is here. The good lady is here. I mean, they were telling me what they were able to do telemedicine from an obscure village in Sindhudurg to etc. So, a lot of support has come in any case, etc. But we really want hardcore evidence. No questions. I'm trying to fill in the gap. I'm really looking for the questions for my panelists. They will be disappointed that you have not asked them anything actually.
Can I
Okay. Yes, please.
When we talk about health, one of the people that we're missing in this whole gamut is the disabled.
Is there?
Disabled.
Disabled.
Right.
Okay.
So,
On that actually, and our team has gone over there and we want to introduce, as a matter of fact, Maha Online and TCS were trying to give us some HMIS. It included a module on the disabled in any cases, but that is there. But otherwise, from 2 or 3 aspects I can tell you, providing access to health institutions for the disabled is the simplest thing. It has been done, but not so well, I must admit. That is the first thing. I mean, even if a disabled comes to a health institution, if there is no disabled access, it becomes just see Mantralaya. I mean, in Mantralaya it was not there, but thanks to the PWD department, the access to the disabled has improved considerably actually. And it must go to PWD and the chief secretary. I mean, in one of our meetings I remember he just said it should be done, and it was done in 2-3 days time actually, but it needs to be replicated actually. And the social justice department is trying to do this. The other aspect is basically providing them support in various ways, etc. Well, there is a whole lot of debate going on, but the medical education department and public health department has taken the view, our job is to identify, provide them all those support, etc. But giving of the actual equipment, it should be left to the social justice department, the tribal development department or similar department, etc. If the public health department gets involved into distribution of this, etc., then we will not be in a position to devote enough time to do identification, providing them services, including physiotherapies and occupational therapies and all that. A lot of these things are being done, etc. But I think you are right, more needs to be done in any case. There's no doubt about it. Yes, please.
All this was about National Rural Health Mission.
So he talked about 16, he mentioned only those actually.
Is there any scheme for urban area, National Urban Health Mission? Is there any
I think we are moving from ICT to, this session is on information technology. The answer is yes and no to you, basically. So that you heard the finance minister's speech very clearly. He just want to re-christian the National Rural Health Mission into National Health Mission, which will encompass the rural part and the urban part of it, etc. A big debate is going on in Government of India as to who should be really taking this scheme, whether the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare or the Urban Development Ministry over there or the poverty alleviation. Planning Commission has been asked to resolve this issue, but a lot of effort has been put into the NRHM wherever it is possible to introduce urban health systems here, etc. Some of the municipal corporation, one of the municipal commissioner is here, he can speak to you about this, Kalyan. A lot of the municipal corporations are focusing actually. The Kalyan module, which was developed around the year 2002-03 actually, for giving a whole citizen-centric services, included the birth and death registration among other things, etc. Part of the health, but not directly related with health. If you go to the JJ hospital, for example, the whole HMIS has been done, etc. Gujarat has done a very good HMIS through TCS, but it has not gone beyond Gujarat actually. Incidentally, the ESIC has done the Dhanvantri, okay, and it's a good system. It's a good system. It's a bit complicated, but it's good for them actually. So there are a lot of efforts which are going on to this. And ESIC is 100% urban incidentally, more or less I will say. Yes, please.
The issue regarding this Asha BS,
Yeah.
This can be still connected. Even in the Department of Sports and Department of Education, where these are the public places, where the investments in land and building or infrastructures can be of a common utility. So health mission can be with equipped with the education department, and so also with the sports department. Thereby, I think there will be more activity, because the work is regarding the social health. I think that social health is a very important area which covers, and it has to go towards that mission. It has to be
No, ASHA, the acronym stands for Accredited Social Health Activist. Okay, I don't think we would like to load the ASHA. That is not provided for with sports and other things.
I feel that only that cost cutting factors on that.
I think cost cutting will create a very tremendous loss too, because the person would be loaded with far too many things and they will not be able to give the original work. But we are coordinating very well with my colleague here, Vandana actually. Anganwadi and the health. BCDCs, which are basically village child development center, basically for malnutrition. That is the one which we are actually doing it. We are tying up with the water and sanitation department to have the Jal Suraksha Karyagram. Basically, what Maharashtra has done is identified more than 300,000, more than 3 lakh water sources, given them a code number, etc. Testing has to be done. So testing is done by the public health department, coding, etc. Having a similar enabled things are being made available.
That is the point, because it is a connect.
But as I said, the peripheral nutrition, yes, health and nutrition will go very well, etc. Health and water will go very well, but health and sports, difficult, sorry. That is all I'm saying here.
I'm talking about education institutions also can be linked upon. It can be.
The only way we are linking ourselves is to the school health team. Basically, there is a whole set of things on school health team which we can speak on, but I don't think we have the time. We'll be encroaching on the next session actually. The last question, if at all.
Actually, I have one question.
Yes.
I mean, it is not very specific to the initiative, government initiative in health area. It's generally government projects, you know. I mean, as an academician, I would like to know, like, are there any standard frameworks, you know, which are there for evaluating e-governance, success or failure of any e-governance project? I mean, are there any standard frameworks? Yeah.
Is there
Yeah.
evaluation assessment framework is there in the Department of IT, Government of India website. This has been done by the IIM under Professor Subhash Bhatnagar. This has been tested on 2 national programs with 34 projects, state projects, and 2 or 4 national projects. This has been done quite early, 7 or 8, just to have a pilot and all. We are working on that. There is a full-fledged M&E monitoring and evaluation group in NEGT under our NEGT, which is there for the mission mode project. They are very active monitoring. In fact, all the MMPs, unless there is an M&E component, they do not pass through the IT.
Yeah, I think Rajesh is the most competent person among others here in the hall who can talk about all this evaluation, etc. But what he has been talking about and almost cautioning each one of us in Mantralaya is far too many pilots have been taken on the ice. Far too many pilots. The success rates are pretty low. Okay? Escalating up has been very, very challenging. It's very bright to say this thing works in a small domain. When you try to escalate, the challenges are huge. I'll just give you an example. Yesterday we tried the simplest of this. We have been talking about this full SMS. Nobody has been able to demonstrate. Let me say, I'm challenging the industry here. Okay? Not one person could show it to us. So we have gone ahead in any case. Yesterday we had a video conferencing across the state actually, where manuals had been given, people had been taught. But sending and for the SMS, it's not that easy actually. There is a default, everything. You have to just punch in numbers over there. But you see, how do you put a number, whether you put 0, 1 or 1? It makes a difference. How do you give a space, etc. Very simple things. Yesterday we spent 2 hours teaching people on the video conferencing, etc. So simple things take time, complicated things never work. Okay, thank you. Let's give a round to all the 3 speakers here, and we need to vacate this dais. Thanks, Rajesh. Thanks.
As a Joint Commissioner Economic Intelligence Unit, Department of Sales Tax, Government Maharashtra. Okay, so we'll listen to him. So I think he is going to open up how it is being done in your department, I mean financial inclusion, right? Okay.
Good evening, I'll system in next 5 years. The first, I'll directly go. So this department started actually when I joined from IIM Ahmedabad back to department. Then we started this economic intelligence unit, and then since last 3 years we are working. We are connecting different agencies. So this is the sequence. I won't go into that. These are the data sources, internal and external. We already connected Indian Customs, income tax, service tax, and some other departments. So this is the framework which will be there in next 5 years for Maharashtra sales tax. And I know that no power can stop an idea whose time has come. So time has come that all taxation agencies or all revenue agencies should be linked, and things which will change the complete game in the taxation or revenue collection, actually receipts side. So in our case, all things, as in morning also, Commissioner Bhatia sir had told that all data is collected electronically, validated electronic data, e-registration, e-return, e-payment, and E704 and all those things. So complete validated data is collected. Then it comes to our Mahavat portal, and then Mahavikas is our internal transaction system. And then third and most important ambitious project, which is first of its kind in commercial tax in India, is data warehouse and business intelligence tools. We have already placed our system integrator on board. Capgemini is our system integrator on board. They have already started requirement gathering and all those things. So within next 8 months, we will be having a complete project and we'll start analyzing with business intelligence tools. We are connecting with different agencies like CBEC and CBDT. We are already connected. Central Board of Excise and Customs and Central Board of Direct Taxes, that is income tax. In first, there are 3 agencies: Customs, Excise, and Service Tax. So we have developed a software in Delhi, actually at CBEC, Digi System CBSE. We have presented it to North Block Revenue Secretary, Government of India, and now it's Maharashtra is the only state, so it is a pilot project plus with central 4 agencies. Now we will include 5 more states in next 1 or 2 months, and in 1 or 2 years, all India will be connected with all taxation agencies, central taxation agencies, and the tax buoyancy will be huge. Literally, we have got good results from our pilot. And we are connecting then border checkpost, Tinaxis, then we see revenue is getting up. Then Kosh Vahini, which purchases a lot of, which has details about government purchases. We are connecting the Kosh Vahini also. And Financial Intelligence Unit is the unit in Delhi, actually, which collect data whenever you deposit or withdraw more than 50,000 at a time. The data goes to Delhi's server. From there, we have got a lot of good results in cases. In Bombay, we found that in sales tax database, dealer is showing only 3 or 4 banks, and when we got data from FIU, we got 60 banks in one case, actually, and bank accounts were held at Saharanpur and Trivandrum and Visakhapatnam, and dealer is having his office in Masjid Bandar. So a lot of things are coming up, and I'm sure this will change the whole taxation game in India. Then MCA, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, also we are trying to connect online, and then SEBI and Octroi. Bombay Octroi also got good benefit from sales tax data, actually. And now since local body tax LBT is coming, every municipal organization asking me the data, actually. Kolhapur, we are giving data to Kolhapur, then Ulhasnagar, and all municipal corporations are taking data from Maharashtra sales tax. So this is the 5-year job, next 5-year job for Maharashtra sales tax. I'll show another 2 slides, actually. So this is the data exchange project. This page is already completed, actually. We are uploading data through FTP server. So every agency uploads data from their own server, machine. So I can, from my chamber, I can upload data of return, registration, and all to Delhi's CBEC, where our server is there, BI server, and then the data is analyzed, and analyzed reports are sent back to that particular individual department. So this is the idea about data exchange project. I'll go fast for data warehouse. This is the idea of And I must say that Rajesh Chandra also has helped us in this lot of way, because of him only this project is possible. This is first of its kind in India actually for commercial tax, and it will change complete India's taxation system. In next 5 years, every state will have BI tools with them, because anyway they are going with electronic data. So it's systems, Mahavikas, Mahavat, external sources, and then analysis, and then reports to all CM or Deputy CM or Finance Minister or Secretary. They can see from their own chamber how much is how many registrations at Barsi or how many registrations at Garchiroli. So all payments and all those things, all things are possible. And these are the techniques. Actually, I won't go into much details, because business intelligence, different type of analysis, cluster analysis and optimization technique, time series patterns. So basically BI things. I won't go into much details. And then standard reports and ad hoc reports will be generated, which will give, and this is the POC done actually. This is changing, we get circular transactions actually. So whatever way, even we can go back up to 1000 times if there are 1000 suppliers in the chain. So we can trace the original importer or manufacturer, and we can catch that guy. In morning sir has told that Hawala dealers. So it's possible to catch last Hawala dealer through this system. And then cyber forensic, last thing. Cyber forensic is again first of its kind in commercial tax in India. So we already visited many labs, Hyderabad, 3 labs. We have visited Hyderabad Police, Government, AP, and then Deloitte, Asia, then Gujarat lab. And Sir Rajesh Agrawal sir has helped us in this also to establish. It's already established, and actual working will start within few days. I must say that things are possible in government also, and things are changing very fast. And it's possible that लहरों से डरकर नौका पार नहीं होती, कोशिश करने वालों की हार नहीं होती. So we must work hard, and I'm sure with this and with support of you all, we can rise. And I must say that in Maharashtra particularly, we need funds for development, for roads and dams and everything, irrigation, basically infrastructure. I have seen infrastructure in Korea, in US when I was had been training to there, and Gujarat where I was at IIM for 1 year, Ahmedabad. So infrastructure is fantastic in those states, and Maharashtra is unfortunately infrastructure is lagging. But I'm sure with the funds from all these taxation agencies connecting taxation, which will we have collected last year 56,000 crore, and this year we will be expecting 70,000 crore at the end of 31st March, and by next financial year we are expecting more than 1 lakh crore. So I'm sure with that, with the help of all these projects and with the help of connectivity of different agencies, we'll definitely cross 1 lakh figure in after 2 years down the line. So lastly, I'll say that the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but we have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. Thanks a lot.
All power. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Patel. I can have few comments on your disappointment about the infrastructure. After going through this hard passage of 11 years in e-governance, I can tell you one thing. There is no problem with technology, there is no problem with machine. It's the man behind the machine is the problem. So if the man and machine both were there, perhaps okay in Gujarat and other places, that's why they have done. I can only hope that your infrastructure will also come, and your mindset also will change, then automatically things will change. And I have not seen anywhere where the ICT has been put, and if your revenue earning or tax collection is the only motto, that is not a single case where the revenue will not go up. In each and every case, revenue will go up because the productivity will go up, efficiency will go up, turnaround time for a case will go up. So your collection per day, because the collection is always per day or per month or per year, fiscal, so it will go up. So it's simple mathematics. It will go up because efficiency will go up. Thank you very much. We'll entertain questions later. Yes. Our next speaker is Dr. Nair. He is from Pune, National Informatics Center, Pune. Just now you heard from Mr. Vantiya that about he was hailing the NIC, so he belongs to NIC Pune, not here. Let us see what he wants to say.
All of you.
10 minutes.
Yeah. I'll go through fast. I'm just basically here to share an experience on developing this system. GRAS, basically it is known as a government receipt accounting system, and it is in collaboration with Directorates of Accounts and Treasury. This entire system is being implemented by Virtual Treasury Mumbai, Directorate of Accounts and Treasury, Government of Maharashtra. The basic objective of the system is to remove the hurdles and the delays in the existing systems of payments to the government, state government basically. Because any receipt which comes to the government is through the treasuries. And at presently there are two types of treasuries. One is a physical treasury where there is a jurisdiction across the district, and the virtual treasury which Government of Maharashtra has created. This is the first of its kind in the country. The jurisdiction of the virtual treasury is across the entire states. And the difference between a physical treasury and a virtual treasury is basically physical treasury will accept both receipts and it makes payments. But in case of a virtual treasury, it has been accepted only for receipts. And across the state or across the country, from anywhere you can make payments to the government treasury. That is the important point of this. What are the existing problems in the physical treasury? Like physical visit to the treasury is a must. Treasury bank or to the respective departments for making payments to the government. Manual system of payments with loopholes and prone to mistakes. High manpower deployment is required. And proof of payment, that is receipts, get misplaced or torn and you cannot make another copy of that in the manual system. Now this is the physical existing workflow. Like you have payees, you have the payees, they have to go to the department has to pass the challan, and then he has to go to the bank, make the payment, and then bank gives the scroll. This is all physical, and you have 3 copies of the challan in a physical treasury. We had to eliminate all this process and create a new process so that customer sitting at his house can make the payment. So first of all we had to have a common challan format. Now before deployment of this system, there were around about 100 to 150 types of different challan formats. From that challan format, we had to create a single challan format across all the departments also. So if I want to make a payment to the treasury, now with a single challan, I can make payment across any department or any receipt. Now single electronic scroll, because banks are involved, we had to standardize on even a scroll format. Now physical copy of the challan is not stored at the treasury, it is not stored at the bank also, only it is with the customer. The customer brings the challan and gives it to the concerned department for service. And the biggest benefit of the system is the government itself, where instant credit is given to the government account. One of the biggest strength, that means within T+1, the money is going to the consolidated fund of the Government of Maharashtra. Now this is the entire flow. Like here is the government treasury, the center point. Now on the top I have my payee, I have my participating banks, we have the Reserve Bank of India, we have Account General, and we have the DICOT. Each stakeholder has got a role over here. Now payee sitting on his house or internet can make a payment. They will prepare on the challan on the GRAS side. Once the challan is prepared, the payee can identify which is the participating bank. The system takes it to the participating bank. Using the payee's internet account, customer's account is debited and government's account is credited instantaneously. Bank gives us the status, whether it is a success or a failure of the transaction. The status is returned back to the payee in the form of a number. Payee can immediately print the challan sitting anywhere, in his residence, office, anywhere. Payee then takes the challan to the department for getting the service. Like if you want to book a vehicle, you have to pay registration fees, you have to pay tax for that vehicle. You can go to the RTO office and the RTO office will give you service. So every department will be integrated in this way. Next, the cutoff time given by RBI is around about 8 o'clock. So next day by 11 o'clock, banks gives us the scroll in a digitally signed format. The fund is immediately transferred to RBI when the bank gives the scroll. RBI gives the scroll immediately by 4 p.m. That means if all transactions which takes place at 8 p.m. is reconciled in the consolidated fund of Maharashtra by next day 4 p.m. which is a very big achievement of the system. Otherwise in the physical treasury, it takes more than 1 month to reconcile the accounts. Now, see, since payee is making the payment, treasury is not having the challan physical copy and the department is not having challan, there should be a proper verification mechanism where the department can verify the challan, and after the challan is verified and the service is given, the department has to deface the challan so that challan is not reused. So this entire workflow is taken care. Then we have electronic reconciliation between virtual treasury and the bank. We have reconciliation between the bank and the RBI amount. Whatever bank says whether amount has been credited, and finally at the end of the month the accounts are submitted to the AG. So entire workflow we have taken care. It is not only e-payment, right from creation of the challan till submission accounts to the AG office, and everything is electronic. It is one of the first, as I said, first virtual treasury established in the country. It's a G2G, G2G and the G2B application. I'll just go through fast. These are the stakeholders. This is the comparative timestamp, like what happens, what is the benefit out of the system. Today, what is the process there, and because of GRAS, what has been the process. If you see, if I collect money through the conventional method, that is through a physical treasury, if you see 1 crore collected, it takes around 8 days for that amount to go to the consolidated fund, because now if it is in a cash or a check, it takes 3 or 4 days for the check or the demand draft to be credited to the bank account, and the bank is given around about 3 to 5 days for crediting into the government treasury. So normally the turnaround time is around 8 days. So this we have limited to 1 day. So if I collect 1 crore of rupees per day, I save around 22,000 as interest, because I have taken the average borrowing rate is around 10%. So around about 100 crores is collected using this system daily. So you save around about 50 to 60 crores as interest only to the government. Forget about the manpower cost and the implementation. And all this we are doing only with the 5 manpower. There is no transaction cost involved to the citizen or to the payee like other systems. Not even a single amount is taken. Banks does not take any money for integrating the software with the GRAS system. And agency commission, RBI pays rupees 45 rupees as agency commission to banks per transaction. Now, if you see receipt, it's divided into 2 components. One is revenue collection and one is non-tax, which is governance, control, monitoring. What is the tax component? It's basically high revenue, but moderate service. High revenue in the sense, like sales tax is high revenue. The next biggest revenue earning department is IGR, and the third is excise department within the hierarchy of the state. So we have taken at the first phase the high revenue so that we prove the system, and in the second phase we have to really work upon high service but moderate revenue, like 200 rupees or 300 rupees. Here the volume of transaction will be very high. In the left hand, in the tax example, the volume of transaction is very low, but the amount is very high. Around about 70% come under this bracket, and the remaining 30% come on the non-tax bracket. Now, which are the departments covered, like RTO, IGR, courts, excise, directorates of account and treasury, food, department of cooperation. All these departments are covered in GRAS at present. And any department can be added within a 10 minutes time. It's just a configurable parameter. Now we started the system in 2011-12. Last year we collected around 10,365 crores using this system, and we are around about 5,000 registered users. And the single largest transaction was 44 crores was transacted in one challan. Now IGR has collected last year around about 7,200 crores in the system. Around 50% of IGR receipts have come through GRAS. The second highest is excise department, 2,500, and 30% of the receipts of the department. And RTO around 12%. This year we are expecting around 10,000 crores from IGR itself, and around 75% of the receipts of IGR will be through electronic form. This year we are expecting to collect some 20,000 crores. This is our dashboard, which is in public domain. These are the banks which are integrated, the departments we have integrated. What are the technologies we have used? We have used SSL certificate, that is basically for green bar for high security, because we are dealing with banks. We have extensively used digital signatures, basically for login, signing of bank scroll, signing of file. Even the challan is digitally signed. This is the diagrammatical representation of that. We have done a security audit, security compliance, performance testing. As in the morning session, they were saying that if a system is released, we should see whether it will crash or not crash. So we have done a lot of functional testing, performance testing, penetration testing. We have a DC to DR, and every 4 months we see that the machine, the system runs on the DR also to see that whether the DR is in place or not. Future plans, we are planning to integrate debit card, credit card with the system, and integration of all the nationalized bank. We would also like to introduce manual payment across the counter to GRAS participating banks. And we are extending our domain knowledge to other states. 5 states have already come forward to replicate this system. And Kerala, NIC Pune is only doing it. Within 3 months, we will be releasing that system. Slowly, other states are also interested. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is that Payment Corporation of India speaker is here? He's not here. Okay, I have just a question. Have you implemented 256-bit encryption? I have seen in one of the slides.
Yeah. Basically, it is from server to server.
Server to server?
Yeah, HTTPS.
Not at the endpoint?
Not at the endpoint. Because whatever data we are transmitting from our portal to the bank portal, that we have encrypted. And on top of that, certain banks have their own encryption algorithm. On top of this, like SBI has got their own encryption algorithm.
Thank you. Okay. So, any question for Mr. Bhagwan Patil? Why are you hiding there? I know that you work in a department which always goes on hiding. Intelligence unit. I do everything from the behind. So please take a seat. Is there any question for Mr. Bhagwan Patil and Nayar, my former colleague from NIC? Any question? I understand there are 2 more sessions, isn't it? There are 2 more sessions? Before 6:30? Yes, sir. I counted 13 speakers between 5:10 to 6:30. Okay, good. But I just wanted to conclude. If you don't have any questions, I just will take 1 minute. You have seen since morning I am here, and you must have been watching that GIS is coming back, coming in so many references. So I want to draw your attention on that. There is nothing is possible now in the modern e-governance without GIS. I had a chance to talk, thanks to the sister magazine of eGov. There is a GIS world. So late Prahlad, C.K. Prahlad, I had a privilege to talk to him. He is gone now. Last year he left us. So he was telling me one important thing I want to share, because I am now out of the government, so I can also share more frankly. He was telling me the Mr. Sanyal, I have seen your National Urban Renewal Mission, and there is a very small reference of GIS. How can you have a national program without full GIS? There should be first page GIS, last page GIS. That's number 1. And one more thing I just wanted to say, that don't forget to see the writing on the wall. All the industry people are there, use mobile platform. Since 1970 the TV came here. Today, 40 years, after 40 years, they are still did not touch half a million. It's half a billion, 480 million now, the TV in the country. And it is now already 1,000 million, almost 980 as per TRI unpublished report. So all the developers, they should try to develop on mobile. All the services, mobile governance was prevalent in Korea in 2003. I was privileged to have a CIO training sent by DIT of politics in Korea. They were already talking about the mobile governance. Next governance is G governance, that means geo governance. So the GIS, mobile, these 2 are technology. One is a platform and is a technology. These 2 are coming. So all the people who are definitely interested in e-governance, otherwise why are we sitting here up to 5:50? Okay, so you must understand these 2 are the future writings in the world. So if you are a developer, you must explore. If you are a user, you must explore that how much you can use GIS, how much you can use mobile. This is the concluding remark, if you can say that. I had a presentation, I have sacrificed that. And now, thanks for these 2 things. No question, I also want organizers to say something. Any housekeeping?
Thank you, sir. We would like to give a memento as a token of appreciation for your time. Dr. Sanil, I request you to give a memento to Dr. Nair.
Can I
yes,
say correction?
Yes, sir.
From the rest of your life, you don't say memento. It is memento. There is no word as memento. 99% educated people also make this mistake. So you don't have to be ashamed, but it is a memento. It is not memento. Rest of the life you should announce memento.
Yes, sir. Shri Bhagwan Patil. And thank you, sir. Thank you for being with us for this session. Thank you, sir.